This is Megan with the Collins Sister Trio. I have gotten back from Tuachan Theater, which is in Ivan, Utah, just about 20 minutes from St. George, which is at the bottom of the state. Anyway, we saw Tarzan. Me and my husband saw Tarzan and Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I am going to review Tarzan first, and then I'll do Hunchback second. I wasn't allowed to take pictures or film the show, so I can't show you those. So I decided you guys can watch me mess around on Final Fantasy 15. If you'd like to see more of a playthrough of this game, go ahead and leave comments, and I would be more than happy to play through this game again. It's got a lot of slack, but I really like this game. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. I tried doing the review on Kingdom Hearts by playing the Tarzan level, but the audio for the game was so loud that you couldn't really hear me. So we're going to play Final Fantasy 15 instead. So I'm going to do a spoiler review. My spoiler-free opinion is I recommend going to see it. It was quite the spectacular. Very impressive. They had a lot of acrobats and zipline, flying through the sky and everything. It was a very cool show. Wait till nighttime to go into this place. It sucks. Anyway, we're almost there. It was great. I recommend it if you happen to be in the area. We got cheap seats. We're about $29. We were on the left-hand side of the stage, 5 rows away from it. Next to the stage, though, they have these 2 areas where the actors will go and perform. So we were actually able to see some numbers close up, even though we had a really bad view of the whole stage. We had a much better view for Hunchback, but that is a different story for another video, right? Tarzan is played by the guy who played him on Broadway, the original. He helped create the character for the Broadway. His name is Josh Strickland. I was very impressed and excited to hear that we got to see the OG Tarzan. It was just amazing. That is the end. Oh, the cast did really great. Everyone did great. Tarzan, the actor, you didn't see the actor playing Tarzan. You saw Tarzan on stage. That's how good he did, in my opinion.
Cold if you don't wear your jacket.
I mean, Ignis, he's cute. So we have the spoiler-free is ending now. I'm going to walk through the show and a brief review of it. Mostly follows the movie. It isn't 100% beat for beat for the movie. But it's close. In parts. Most part, it's close. They did do some changes. So the show opened with, if you've ever been to the theater, there's normally someone who'll say, welcome to the theater, this is Tarzan. And if there's any changes in performances, they'll tell you that. And we actually had the understudy for young Tarzan. So we saw Hudson Sullivan play Tarzan. He's 11 years old. He did a really good job. He was super cute. Yeah, so they started talking about flooding. Don't put your stuff down because the floor might flood. And we're like, what? The floor's gonna flood? What's gonna happen? So the back opens and we see this pool of water. And everyone was cheering, and I'm like, okay, let's cheer for some water, yay. But then it got higher until the stage flooded. And we're just in awe. We're like, they flooded their stage. They flooded their stage. And then you have...
If I only had a gill for every time he said that.
So then we have,
Plow right through him. I'll suck it up.
Hell yeah! Whoa! Look at this guy!
Tarzan starts singing, and I turned to my husband, and I'm all like, this sounds exactly like the Broadway. And Josh Strickland has a very unique voice, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really him? Are we gonna, because I didn't know beforehand that it was him. And so I'm like, are we gonna see the original Tarzan? And we did, and it was so cool. And anyway, so he sings the opening. You guys, if you've never seen the musical, you wouldn't know that. Tarzan sings the opening number, Two Worlds. And as he's singing, the monkeys come on at one point. And his family first, they row through the water and over to the treehouse, which happened to be right by us. We got to see them up close and personal. Poor guys were sweating. It was so hot. Anyway, so it shows the family crash, and then it shows...
Let's hit it.
If you say so.
The monkeys come on,
My hand's just
and
shaky. Well,
Sabor
that
comes
was
on
fun.
and kills the baby monkey and the
Fun's
parents.
just
But
getting
before
started.
that,
You
as
wanna
the
turn
monkeys are
back
coming
now?
on, we're like, oh, those are fun costumes. And I look up, and there's a monkey flying over my head. These are actors dressed as monkeys. They're not real monkeys. And I guess they'd be gorillas. That's why I should be saying instead of monkeys. Those gorillas are flying over my head, and I was like, oh, look up there to my husband. And we were both just, shocked. It was so cool. And Sabor's costume is really cool. He did a great job. He goes, he kills the baby, he kills the parents. Kala comes, and you'll be in my heart. There's a little more to do with the gorillas. They do some talking, talking about rainy seasons and moving. And Kerchak doesn't want Kala to keep Tarzan. All the same for the movie. Well, Tarzan grows up to be a little kid, and that's where he meets Turk. But before that, the little monkeys, the baby gorillas, are teasing poor Tarzan, and they hang him upside down. I'm like, oh, this brave soul. This little 11-year-old boy is being hung upside down. I would have been freaking out.
I got a feeling there's something below. Give it a quick look-see.
Let me give the orders this time.
It was so cool.
Keep it short.
Anyway,
This one's
I love this ring.
Say your prayers.
This is my... You don't get a ring till after you beat the game. But anyway, so we have Tarzan as a kid. He meets Turk, and Turk is an adult. He is played by Rendell Du Bois. He did an amazing job. I was supposed to be in the comic relief, and I normally despise comic reliefs, but he did it in such a way that he wasn't annoying.
Don't worry about
He
me.
was a really good comic relief. I really liked him as a comic relief. Like Olaf, I can't stand Olaf. Olaf's the worst. I'm sorry, Olaf lovers. I hate Olaf with a passion. Just ask anyone. Olaf's horrible. So, moving away from Olaf, Turk saves him. They become friends, and
No worse for wear.
Tarzan
Bring on
shows
the next
him
one.
his spear that he made. He found a stick, and then he adds a rock to it and creates a spear. He calls it a fruit picker. And then he climbs on Turk's back, and they both go climbing up the vine, so they're in the air again, and they pick the fruit, and Kerchak sees them, but he doesn't see a fruit picker. He sees a spear. And he's afraid now that Tarzan is going to hurt the family, and so he kicks Tarzan out. So this is where it differs from the movie. So Tarzan is kicked out of the family, and Kala goes with him. And then he grows up, and when he came on, Josh Strickland came on, everyone was cheering, and they were all so excited. It was so cool to see him as Tarzan. Like I said, he was just great. And Tarzan teaches Turk how to play with fire, or how to make fire. And they build a trap for Sabor, who's a leopard. And Tarzan catches, there's a little fight scene there, Tarzan gets him, and so Tarzan kills Sabor, and then Kerchak welcomes him back to the family. But at the same time, they happen to hear, they happen to hear a gunshot, and Tarzan, who's supposed to go with his family, decides to investigate. He goes and he finds sees Jane. Now Jane comes in walking down through the audience, and I love it when shows do this. I think it's so much fun when they just have them walking through the audience.
No use hanging
And
around
then there's a
here.
butterfly flying in the sky, and the bee was hilarious. And this scene, when I did it back a few years ago at my local theater, I was a tree, and I was so proud to be a tree, because I can say I was a tree. How many people can actually say that they've got to play a tree? I mean, it's iconic. There was no tree though. I was kind of sad that no one played a tree. There was a tree, but no one was the tree. And Jane gets captured or gets caught by a spider, and Tarzan frees her, and then they sing a song called, I think it's called "Different." And Tarzan talks about how they're the same but different, and that's the end of the first act. Well, during the intermission, we saw them putting up this tent, and I'm like, "But Trash in the Camp comes next. They're just going to destroy this tent." And we're like, well, maybe they'll leave the tent alone. But no, they destroyed it. So it took them 10 minutes to put the tent up and about 5 minutes to take it down. And one of the actors was walking along the rope as though she was a gorilla climbing along the top of it, taking down the tent. It was so cool. So we have Trash in the Camp, and then Tarzan and Jane, they meet Clayton. Unfortunately, Professor Porter was killed off. We were very sad by this. And then so they cut a whole number out of the show because he's not. And the other version, she sings a song with her dad, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really good song. But he's not there, so they had to cut it. And that was depressing. But we had. It was a good show. Sorry, my brain just like died on me. There. So they sing "Strangers Like Me," Tarzan and Jane. They act like they're in love and all this. No, they fall in love. And then there's another song called "For the First Time," when they talk about their love, but not to each other. They're singing it in their heads. And Jane comes out on this hammock. And we're just like, whoa, that's scary. And Turk came out earlier on a gondola, and we're like, oh my goodness. And so they fall in love, and Jane says she has to leave, and of course Tarzan doesn't want her to leave. So Clayton tells him, if you see the gorillas, then she'll stay. And so they go to see the gorillas, and in the meantime, Clayton is thinking, I'm going to get me some gorillas, but then Jane says that Tarzan's the real prize of this expedition. So he decides to capture Tarzan instead. And in some versions, he actually does capture Tarzan and puts him in a cage. In this version, he didn't. Anyway, Kerchak comes and scares them away, and Kala takes Tarzan to see the treehouse, and we got to see a number called. It was a really good number. I love the song. It's my favorite song in this show. It's when he decides that he is a man and that he's gonna go with Jane instead of stay with the monkeys. And of course, that breaks poor Kala's heart. And we have Tarzan wearing his human suit. But before he goes, Clayton comes and attacks the gorillas because he wants to catch a few to sell to zoos and whatever along with Tarzan. But Kerchak ends up saving Tarzan's life, and he dies, just like in the movie. Tarzan has to stay to lead the monkeys, and then of course Jane decides to stay in the end. But they finally have their kiss, and then they go like up on the fly system. That's what it's called when you can see people like doing acrobats and stuff in shows. They're using a fly system. They go flying back up above the audience, and it's like, oh my gosh, and they're kissing the whole time. And then for the bows, they come back kissing, and it was just like, oh, these guys are so brave. It was such a good show. Everyone did great. Kala was played by a woman named Beatrice Malo. Clayton is played by Sean Thompson until the 5th, and he's changing actors. And Kerchak was played by James Tenney. A lot of these actors did multiple shows. They don't just do. They don't just do one show. So we saw that's why Clayton was also Phoebus. Yeah, that's Tarzan. I would suggest seeing it. It is spectacular. Show. Was it a good show? Honestly, I don't like the Broadway Tarzan. Nothing to do with the cast. The cast was all phenomenal. I just didn't like the script. So the cast is fine. It was not their fault. It was okay. it was a little on the boring side. But again, that's not the cast's fault at all. I'm not giving them any shade because they all did amazing. But I would recommend it, just seeing it for the spectacle that it is if you happen to be in town. But yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.